Of all the sciences, chemistry has to be the most exciting. It tells us about our world, its materials, and their properties. Munich at the turn of the last century. A downtown backdrop of automobiles and electric streetcars. Technical progress is having an even bigger impact on people's lives. The origins of Wacker are based on a visionary idea: the intelligent use of electricity to produce chemicals. Dr. Alexander Wacker is a businessman fascinated by electrochemistry and its possibilities, and he systematically sets about putting his vision into practice. At the grand old age of 68, he founds a new company. Alexander Wacker knows what he's doing. As an associate of Sigmund Schuckert, he's one of the pioneers of electrical engineering. The experienced entrepreneur is well known for his far-sightedness and resolve. On October 13, 1914, he signs the Articles of Incorporation for Dr. Alexander Wacker Gesellschaft für elektrochemische Industrie KG. And so begins a global success story, even though the start was less than auspicious. Amid the First World War, work starts on building the Burghausen plant, which is still Wacker's largest site. Demand for acetone speeds up the pace of construction. The first shipment to Bayer takes place as early as January 1917. Acetone for synthetic rubber is urgently needed in times of war. But once the armistice is signed in November 1918, there's no longer any demand for it. Wacker loses 60% of its sales revenue overnight. It becomes necessary to find new applications for the starting material, acetylene. After World War I, such applications were devised by the highly qualified chemists at the consortium, founded by Alexander Wacker in 1903, as the nucleus of the group's eventual research activities. They developed new plastics and pioneering processes. In 1920, Alexander Wacker safeguards his life's work by establishing a new family-owned company to act as Wacker's shareholder and becomes its first managing director. In doing so, he ensures that the family speaks with a single voice. His decision creates maximum stability, which still continues to this very day. Wacker expands production and develops new products. This sees an increase in the company's need for funds. The family-owned company sells half its stake to Farbwerke Höchst in 1921, the start of a partnership that lasts for 80 years. Conducting a series of tough negotiations, the company founder ensures that Wacker keeps its independence even as part of a joint venture. Alexander Wacker's original idea was for production to include a captive source of hydroelectricity. For this purpose, he exploits the difference in height between the Alz and Salzach rivers near Burghausen. Construction of the Alz Canal starts in 1916. The founder was unable to witness the start of operations at the Alz power plant in late 1922. Dr. Alexander Ritter von Wacker died on April 6, 1922, shortly before his 76th birthday. The 20s are a period of expansion at Wacker. Using acetylene as a basis, chemists develop detergents, solvents, crop protection agents, resins, synthetic fibers, adhesives, and dispersions. Wacker takes acetaldehyde resin as the basis for making shellac, a versatile plastic used, for example, for gramophone records. One reason for the successes of the early decades are the material loops that form a system of integrated production. Byproducts are returned to the production cycle or converted into new products. The constant refinement of integrated production permits maximum efficiency, a Wacker specialty to this very day. New formulas are created and combined with existing ones. It was during this time that researchers established the principles underlying today's family of Vinapas polymers. In the 1930s, Vinapas products revolutionized the industrial world, as emulsion paint binders, self-leveling flooring compounds, and wood adhesives. A groundbreaking idea then occurs in the late 1950s. What works for instant coffee can be applied to other powders. Such as Vinapas dispersible polymer powder. Vinapas is still one of the company's key product families. Wherever building or renovation work is going on around the world, Vinapas ensures easy handling and high product quality. When it comes to dispersible polymer powders, Wacker is a global market leader, generating annual sales worth over €1 billion. The nationalist fever that started in 1933 ended tragically in 1945. Munich was extensively destroyed, but Burghausen was largely undamaged. Wacker's sites in Bavaria were placed under American control from July 1945 to 1953, a stroke of luck compared to the fate of companies in Eastern Germany. The 1950s. Reconstruction, a fresh start, revival. Wacker becomes a leading manufacturer of plastics in Europe. It goes on to produce and market polyvinyl chloride, or PVC, under the highly successful Vinol trademark for 65 years. Wacker demonstrates its considerable powers of innovation as a pioneer in silicone chemistry. The early 1950s start off with silicone fluids for the tire industry. These products are followed by resins and rubber grades. Thanks to their tailored properties, silicones are now used in a great many industrial sectors, from automotive construction to medical engineering and wind energy. With a market share of 17%, Wacker is currently the world's second largest producer of silicones. Silicon metal is not just the main raw material on which silicones are based. Silicon becomes electrically conductive at relatively high temperatures and an insulator at low temperatures. This semiconductor effect forms the basis of transistors, and hence the basis of the emerging electronics industry during the 1950s. Wacker chemists are in their element with silicon. 1955 saw the successful production of the first hyper-pure silicon rods. The rise of the computer industry ensures that silicon is in huge demand. Wacker continues to gradually expand its production base. At the turn of the new millennium, demand is boosted by the success of solar energy. About 80% of group sales are now based on silicon products. Charleston in the US state of Tennessee. A fully integrated polysilicon production site is being built here. The company is investing over $2 billion. It's the biggest investment in the company's history. Production is due to commence in the second half of 2015. The 1960s, Wacker enters the international arena. The USA was the largest chemical market, so the company launches its US operations by setting up a subsidiary in New York City, before, here in Adrian, establishing its first non-German silicone production site. From its base in Adrian, Wacker coordinates most of its North America business. Now things really get going. Further sites are established and business outside Germany undergoes rapid expansion. In 1974, Wacker's sales exceed 1 billion German marks for the first time, surpassing the 2 billion mark in 1984 and the 3 billion mark in 1989. The years since 2006 have been shaped by a strategically prepared and successful IPO and a coherent global strategy. New production sites are set up in Asia, focusing on China. China is not only the world's largest growth market, but also its biggest market for chemicals. The company's presence around the world is strengthened by technical centers and Wacker Academy branches that provide customers with extensive advice and support right on their doorstep. Wacker today. 25 production sites. Over 3,500 customers worldwide. 21 technical competence centers. 5,500 active patents. And as the company's linchpin, 16,000 employees from 70 countries. This is what Wacker is about. Every day, employees show tremendous dedication on behalf of our customers in fulfilling the corporate motto, Wacker, creating tomorrow's solutions.